Confidential podcast. Today's guest is Kelly Ann Parker. She's the owner of Launch, Grow, Exit. She helps business owners launch their companies, grow them, scale with the purpose of exiting. She also exited her own company, and I'm so excited to have her on the show today to talk all things scaling, growth, and with the hope of selling. So thanks for coming on the show, Kelly.
Thanks so much for having me, Fran. This is going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, so we met at the Amplify event in New York that started out as a Shark Tank reunion, but it grew so fast. I think that there's more and more people who have either worked in corporate America or just started being entrepreneurs that have led to scaling them with all the technology and all the opportunities today. And a lot of them have sold or have hired private equity to grow. Can you talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and tell us about your business that you ended up selling?
Of course. So I think when I think back as long as I can remember, like entrepreneurship was always a part of me. So like it was, just the natural thing that I was going to do with my career. Right out of college, I worked in startups for 10 years and
Wow.
high growth companies that were acquired by bigger companies. I worked for a startup that was acquired by WeWork, one that was acquired by Verizon, another one that IPO'd, DoorDash. So like throughout my career, I knew, that I wanted to be in the mix of chaos and building and growing. So I started my business along the way, and it was in the corporate gifting space. And what I did was bootstrap and just take a little bit of my savings, all the money I had at the time, very, very humble amount, and build out a corporate gifting business. And I grew it organically. And in 2020, when, COVID hit and the world kind of stopped all events and conferences, the only way to get in front of your employees, clients, and prospects was corporate gifting and sending things at home. So it was really kind of like the perfect product and service for the timing. And I was able to have early conversations before kind of the pandemic. And then once it hit, it was very much a need. And UrbanStems had reached out to continue the conversation.
That is so cool. At what point did you think, okay, I know I'm bootstrapping it, I'm growing a business. At what point did you think, wow, maybe I have something that I can sell?
Yeah. So it's really interesting coming from venture-backed companies. Like I had known, what they look for, right? And they really look for those unicorn businesses that want to, 10x their investment. And I knew that I wasn't looking to do that, right? I was looking to create a small, sustainable, small business, lifestyle business, whatever you want to call it. But I knew I could grow it in a way that would be substantial for someone like myself. So just for background, I'm the first college graduate in my immediate family. I didn't come from a traditional like background of someone that would raise capital, right? I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I didn't come from a financial background. My family, primarily the majority of my family works for the city of New York. So like it just wasn't the tradition of growing up in that way. But I knew something that most founders didn't at the time. And it's if you build something big enough, people can't ignore it. And I wasn't doing anything super big or drastic, but I was acquiring customers from my living room that were of the Fortune 500, right? And if you have the ability to, sell a product or service, even if you are a small business and you could acquire a customer like that, you have something of value. And that's what I wanted to prove out, is that I had the ability to sell and market a product or service that would show interest of those types of companies.
It's wonderful that you got the exposure, and even if it wasn't through your family, private equity, finance, those were things that I had no idea and I had to learn along the way. So it's wonderful that you got the exposure in your job. What was the point where you saw it and said, hey, I could do this? What was that point?
Yeah. So when I was at a company called Managed by Q, I was one of the first 8 employees, and it grew to a few hundred employees in New York.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was eventually acquired by WeWork. And I was tasked with being our first seller. And for background, I had no traditional sales experience. Like, our founders went out to fundraise and they were like, "Hey, Kelly," I was supposed to do marketing, right? And they were like, "Hey, Kelly, while we're out fundraising out in California, can you cover the phones in case we have any inbound interest or anything?" So I covered the phones and fundraising took longer than expected. And the next thing you know, we needed to do some outbound to get more clients because they were fundraising. So I just started calling offices around New York City and being like, "Hey, can I clean your office?" And I learned sales. And I learned sales before like podcasting and listening to things. I learned it literally taking sales textbooks on the Q train, reading them to getting off at my stop at Chinatown, and then calling people and being like, "Hey, can I offer you this service?" So being the first seller and learning a complete new skill set at a startup allowed me to then transform to a founder eventually, right? Like, I knew that if I could be one of 8 people building a company that grew it to, a valuation of $500 million, that I would be able to do it for myself one day.
That's so cool. I think that's the hardest part is people making that leap where you see somebody else do it and either, people use the term imposter syndrome or whatever it is. You think there's some barrier, right? Or they're somehow more special than I am. But once you actually lift up the hood and you start working for these companies and you work with these people, you realize, oh, they're really no different than me. There's science and art that can be learned and learned not just through textbooks, but also application, trial and error, failure. So I love having these conversations with founders because essentially somebody exposed you to something and you made the mental leap to say, well, why not me?
Exactly.
And along the way, you know, I'm sure you've had times of challenge and obstacles, but what was the thing that kept you focused and really focused on the end goal, which was the exit? Was there something that kept pushing you during those hard times to get to where you could sell the company?
Yeah, I think for me, it was always personal motivation of like owning a business, and it didn't have to be, as big as what other people would want, right? Like, I think everyone has their success metric. And for me, it was like getting a product or service into it and into the world and having one person purchase, right? Like, to me, that was a
Mm.
successful business. It's like, wow, I did something and that was okay. For other people, it'd be like, no, like you have to sell 100 million, gifts or bouquets or whatever you're selling to be successful. So I was successful out the gate because I had created benchmarks for myself that it was important to just have the experience of owning a business, right? Where the challenges came in and, where things really got tight is I was going through my own like health journey in a lot of parts of this, and not having traditional healthcare and not having that support really like hindered the growth of what was needed for the business to grow. Because when you're a solo entrepreneur and you don't have a team, you don't have backup, you're out sick, there's no backup, people aren't getting their gifts. And that, I would say, was the biggest challenge for me, is someone with a chronic illness who like battles and doesn't really have a clear view of when I'm going to be ill or not. That's always been the challenge of for myself, and like navigating healthcare as an entrepreneur is also a nightmare. So that has
Yeah.
always been my number one personal challenge.
Thank you for sharing, whether it's like mental health, physical health, your health is so important. And sometimes it goes by the wayside, especially for entrepreneurs pushing, working, the people say, you trade a 9 to 5 for a 24/7 job. So,
Exactly.
so thank you for sharing that. And then when you exited, do you feel like it was worth it? Do you feel like that stress of not having the health insurance or not having a team, do you think that it is worth it to push past?
Yeah, it's super interesting because at the time, it made perfect sense. And I still stand by my decision. And I think UrbanStems is incredible. I think they have a great product and our mission's aligned. Their goal is to send happy, right? Like they're the people behind the scenes making sure that, your loved ones are gifted a beautiful bouquet or a beautiful gift. And that's something that made total sense to me from the beginning is, their mission. I think the challenge for me had nothing to do with them and everything to do with going back from the dynamics of being a founder to now being an employee, right? It's not something I considered because I had been my own boss for years prior to the acquisition. And now I had a manager again. And now I had more of a traditional 9 to 5, which wasn't really the case prior. And, so there were things that came along the way that I had to relearn, but it was absolutely worth the experience. And through the experience, both the challenges and the upside of selling and exiting, I've been now able to help, close to hundreds. I know a few hundred at least female founders, and that's what I do now. And that truly is my life's work of being able to help other founders go through the process of launching, growing, and exiting a company.
I love that. Great transition. We introed you as the founder of Launch, Grow, Exit. Tell us, what is the organization? Where are you based? And what do you guys do?
Yeah, so it's still just me. I'm a solo entrepreneur. I'm based in New York City. I grew up here and I haven't left. I've lived in 3 of the 5 boroughs, which is very rare for a native New Yorker. But I have an advisory firm called Launch, Grow, Exit, where I offer one-to-one founder advisory in the way that I would have wanted it as a small business. So there's a lot of founder services out there, right? There's founder advisors, founder coaches, and founder mentors. And I do a really good job of it, saying what a founder advisor does. And I've made it as affordable and accessible to female founders. So I offer a very, very low rate and I offer no contracts and no commitments so that they could pay as they go to have an exited founder where that they can work one-on-one. So everything is remote. I work with founders across the country, actually a few international as well. And yeah, the common denominator are women who want to build something that will have an exit in the future.
It's incredible. And thank you. I love coaches. I love consultants. I love advisors. So even I personally, as a founder, not just the attorney, rely on them because like alluded to before, there are patterns, right? I feel like most of what I do all day and as entrepreneurs, it's pattern recognition, figuring out who's done it before, reverse engineering, finding the patterns. And usually there's somebody who you can find that has done this before. So thank you for making this so accessible and affordable. Kelly, where's the best place that people can connect with you if they are founders or want to learn more about Launch, Grow, Exit?
Yeah, of course. So the easiest way to find me is Kellyanne Parker on LinkedIn, and I am Launch, Grow, Exit on TikTok and Instagram.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Well, we'll have to have you back on the show and hopefully you all venture out one day and either do something on the side or start your own business. It's been such a rewarding journey for me personally and for Kelly too. Please stay connected with us. And Kelly, before we hop off, is there anything that you have going on? Are there any upcoming events or things that the community should know about?
Yeah, I think most exciting is to stay tuned to LinkedIn. One of my biggest goals is to speak on more stages and have that ability. So in 2026, I'll be invited to more stages across the country, which is really helpful to expand our network here in New York.
Amazing. We're so excited. And I'm sure we're going to collab soon.
Yes, absolutely. We have to do something soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Kelly. And thank you everyone for watching. This was Privileged and Confidential, and we will see you soon. Bye.